Engaging story, where the fairy tale ends and real life begins.
And I got this idea in my head that if I could just get him to talk to me, that he would know he wants to marry me.
She didn't know that was going to be a huge task.
It was a huge task.
Love stories with practical ways to strengthen your relationship.
So I made this deal with the Lord. I don't know if it was the right thing to do or not, but it ended up in the right place.
Strengthening your marriage. One story at a time.
And we both have a really high value for feedback. And so we've made it a point in our lives and marriage to keep our lives open to specific people, around us, mentors and mothers and fathers.
Now this is Engaging Story.
I'm Matt.
And this is Becca.
And today's guests are Kim Walker-Smith and her husband Skyler.
Kim Walker-Smith is one of my favorite worship artists. And I always wanted to be a part of a church where there would be music like hers or with her leading. When I moved down to Sacramento, when Matt and I got married, Jesus Culture started a church plant. And they have opened their church now. It's been 2 years. And I've been so blessed because I actually get to attend a church where she is one of the worship artists, and she's just so great about ushering the Holy Spirit and making you just feel God's presence. It's so amazing.
Kim's got a brand new album out. It's called On My Side, and here's a quick little sample.
You're speaking over me. Only your words define me. You tell me who I am. You say rise and draw me from the ashes of the night. So I rise.
You're in for a real treat hearing their love story, and their wedding was very original. You're going to love hearing about it.
As Kim and Skyler were sharing it, it made you just want to be there and see the events of their wedding play out. Also, this episode is perfect for the single people out there. If you're single and you have the desire to be married, this episode will definitely give you hope and encouragement. You can get Kim Walker-Smith's brand new album out at iTunes, on Spotify, and all those places you buy music. We've got it linked up at our website, engagingstory.com. Today's episode, you get to hear how Kim and Skyler met.
I think it's really fun because we all know Kim as the worship artist, but it's a really big treat to know Kim as
A wife and a mama.
So you're going to hear about the dating relationship, how they met, and their first years of marriage, and how they make it all work.
And if you want, take a guess right now how many dates Kim and Skyler went on before he proposed. I'll tell you this, you can count it on your fingers.
Yes, this was truly a love at first sight kind of thing. But they had some history, but God just preordained this relationship together. I think that two are better than one. They're strong together, and they are a great team.
Kim and Skyler have a very busy life. 2 kids, one on the way, tours, albums, and all that. They share a little bit about how they keep connected and how they organize their schedule to make sure that they keep their marriage connection going and their connection with God strong in order to have the strongest marriage possible. If you're a brand new listener to the Engaging Story podcast, welcome. Our mission here is to tell great love stories that give you hope and ideas on how to strengthen your marriage.
So what that means is we have different themes. We know that there's different things that people go through in life. Financial problems, sickness, maybe even infidelity, some kind of loss. They'll kind of lead you through their journey and how they made it, and how with God as their foundation, they have a stronger marriage today.
God's given each one of us a story and testimony to be shared. This podcast showcases stories of couples who have overcome obstacles in their marriage, and our goal is to strengthen your marriage by hearing these wonderful and amazing stories.
So go check out our website, and you can download or buy several different books, and we also have some marriage art available that you can hang in your home to really help celebrate and strengthen your marriage. We have 2 pieces in our home that every day remind me of the commitment and covenant I've made to Matt and our family, and it just reminds me of God's love and keeps me excited and joyful about all the blessings that I have with Matt as my awesome husband.
And if you want to see examples of that artwork, check out our website, engagingstory.com. We've also, like I said, got all the details about Kim's latest album linked up there. You can check out some lyric videos and just connect with her and Jesus Culture. Let's get into the episode. We like to kick off each episode with a song that was significant in the couple's life and their story. Today's song is from Ben Folds.
And I
there a reason you guys picked it, or was it just
We just thought we were lucky finding each other, I guess.
good answer? I don't know, I think it's a special song just because it's saying how unique it is to find the one person that really matches you perfectly, and we definitely felt that way, and it just hit us that way.
So tell us how you guys met.
Okay, we actually grew up in the same little farm town in Oregon, Klamath Falls to be exact, and I was in love with him when I was a little kid. And I got sent to a youth camp one year and saw him there and immediately just was in love with him, convinced I was gonna marry him. And my mom married a man who became my stepdad and who got us going to church. And lo and behold, it was a church that he and his family went to. And our parents became friends, and we started having, it was like Super Bowl parties and things like that where our families would get together. And every time I would be so excited, hoping that I could just have a conversation with him. And I got this idea in my head that if I could just get him to talk to me, that he would know he wants to marry me. That was this thought that was I was obsessed with this thought in my head. And
She didn't know that was going to be a huge task.
it was a huge task. I could not get him to talk to me. In fact, Skyler didn't talk to much anyone, really.
Anybody, no.
And every time, if my family went over to his house, he'd either disappear to his bedroom or leave, go somewhere with his friends. And it was just crushing to me. And I tried and tried and tried.
Not that I had anything against Kim or anything. I just was
You
in
were
my
just
own world.
oblivious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last chance in my head was he was a senior graduating and I was 2 years behind him. And his family invited my family out on a mountain biking trip to San Juan Islands. And I told my mom, we have to go.
Yeah.
I knew this is it. He's going to graduate high school and he's going to go somewhere. This is my last shot. And I told my mom, we have to go. My mom's like, you don't even own a bicycle. And I was like, Mom, I will do anything. Please, we have to go on this trip. She's like, why are you so obsessed with this trip? And I said, because it's my last chance to get Skyler to talk to me. And I know if he would just talk to me, he would want to marry me. And my mom was like, you are crazy. And I remember writing in my journal all the time, Mrs. Kimberly Smith. I love Skyler Smith. I was just so smitten with him. Well, my mom, she said no, we didn't get to go on that trip. And he graduated, he moved away. Him and his family moved to, where'd you guys move first? To Washington? Or was it Bend first?
To Bend, Oregon.
Yeah, and then that was it. And I didn't see him anymore. And 10 years later.
10 years. Wow.
2 years later.
10 years.
Well, so Skylar, did you have any idea that she was interested?
I might have had an idea. I wasn't. I was one of those guys that was being outside, and that's all I cared about. So I wasn't really interested in girls at all. So I don't remember thinking about it once, but I wasn't thinking about any girls really. So that was just the time of life, I guess it was. So yeah, we moved away, separate places, and then it just kind of went out of Kim's mind, and it was never in my mind. So that was that.
Right, womp womp. I tried so hard.
I know.
Myself and a friend ended up back in Klamath Falls for something, and we ended up
My
staying.
mom, my stepdad were still there in Klamath Falls at the time.
They were there, and me and my buddy were looking for a place to stay, and he ended up setting up with Kim's mom. Oh, we'll just stay there because it's all family friends. Everybody's still connected to some level. So we ended up staying at Kim's mom's house, and then, I don't know, something clicked while I was there. Her stepdad was like, we still have a daughter we need to marry off. He was
Yeah,
just joking.
and let me just say, I'm the oldest of 5, and my stepdad was constantly, because I was very career oriented, and my siblings were getting married, and the younger siblings, and my younger sister had already had 2 kids, and my stepdad would always make these jokes about, we just can't get Kim married off, and any single guy that would come around, he'd go, I've got a daughter that's still single. I was like, why are you humiliating me? Stop. But he said that to Skylar.
Yeah, he said that to me, and we were there for a couple days, and then we took off, me and my buddy. But something clicked in me, and I don't know if it was what he said, or obviously the Lord was doing something in my heart already. And I wanted to see Kim. And so the next opportunity I had, I just made every effort to go see her. And that would have been...
Well, that was the
Spokane?
conference. Yeah. So I was leading worship at a conference in Spokane. And his parents were like, hey, we're going to go to this conference. Do you remember Kim?
Here I am before you.
She's going to be leading worship there. And then he was like,
Oh,
that's interesting.
yeah. So I made this deal with the Lord.
And he didn't
which-
know what I was like doing with
Yeah.
my life. Like he didn't like know who I was as far as like the stage, Jesus Culture, Kim, or all that.
Right.
So I made this deal with the Lord. I don't know if it was the right thing to do or not, but it ended up in the right place. I was like, I don't want to try, like, if this is me, these feelings are just me, I don't want to try and talk to Kim. I don't want to try, because I was going a direction and she was going a direction, and I'm like, the last thing I want to do, we're living in different places, the last thing I want to do is, get us both distracted from what we're doing, and, for whatever, for some inclination in my mind. So I was like, okay, Lord, if this is you, I'm going to do my part. I'm going to go to this conference, but I'm not going to try to talk to Kim. I'm not going to try to say, hey, catch your eye, anything. I'm just going to go and see what happens. So I had some friends going, and my parents were going, so I went with friends, I think, and showed up there and randomly ran into another friend, a girl, and she's like, hey, I'm going out to lunch with some friends. This is the conference was several days, I think.
And it's like about 5,000 people. So it's not necessarily a conference you would just run into each other.
Yeah. So run into this friend. She's like, hey, I'm going out to lunch with some friends. Do you want to come? Yeah, cool. And so we head out to lunch, and then I started to think, I'm like, I wonder who these friends are. Like, it's kind of unique. And she didn't say, and typically we knew a lot of the same people, so it would be like, hey, I'm going out with Jimmy or whatever. It'd be obvious. But so I started to think about it, and I was like, I bet we're going out to lunch with Kim. So sure enough, we're waiting wherever we were waiting. Kim comes walking in, and I remember it distinctly. You walked in the room and just came right up to me, and you were like, hey, Skyler. And I was like, hey, Kim.
The moment I saw him, I was like, oh my gosh, it is Skyler Smith. And I immediately felt like the little girl again. And I was so excited. And so I went right up to say hi. But we're in this big group. And so I was trying to contain my excitement. Because I was like, this would be awkward if, we're all going to lunch and I'm ignoring everyone to only talk to him. Even though that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. But I didn't. We were sitting at a table all having lunch together. And
And I think they were probably like, how do these two even know each other?
yeah.
Pretty random.
Yeah.
So we end up out to lunch, sitting next to each other and talking. And obviously I had this thing in my head of, I'm not going to try to end up here. And then all of a sudden we ended up here. So my brain's firing, right? I'm like, what is, okay, what's happening? And really excited, obviously. And so
we leave the restaurant.
We leave the restaurant, yeah, and we end up...
And I was like, hey, do you want to go out on a walk and catch up? And it kind of came out of my mouth like an out-of-body experience, because I wouldn't just go up to a guy and be like, hey, you want to go on a walk? It was just, I remember I had a girlfriend that traveled with me, and she also was my roommate. She knew me really well, and she just went, her jaw just dropped. What did you just say to this guy? You just asked this guy to go on a walk with you and catch up? What? And then I was really embarrassed. I thought, oh, he's gonna think I'm so weird. That's awkward. You don't know me. And he just looks at me and he got super excited. He was like, yes. And I was like, oh, you do? Okay. So we went to this park that was right next to the venue and just sat there talking for the next 2 hours. And it was kind of like, what have you been doing the last 10 years?
It was our conversation. It was that conversation.
It was the conversation that I knew if we just had it. And he, of course, didn't say this, but later I find out in that conversation, he knew he was going to marry me. He didn't tell me.
And then I'm stuck with this dilemma. I'm like, okay, she's the one. This is it. And I just saw her today for the first time. What do you do with that? And you're like, hey, let's get married. Or you're like, I think I'm going to marry you. Or you could just leave it alone. And I decided I'm just going to leave it alone. Obviously, the Lord is working in all this, I'm just gonna leave it alone.
Yeah, and here's what he didn't do. He didn't ask for my number. He didn't ask for my email, like nothing. And so I'm sitting here at the end of the trip saying goodbye thinking, what an idiot. Like he doesn't even, did he not realize what a great conversation this was? And yeah, I just can't believe this is happening. I get on a plane going down to Los Angeles for a little bit, and I just thought, well, that's it. I mean, and part of me wanted to be like, here's my number, just in case. Yeah. But I was like, no, I will be pursued. I am worth the pursuit, so he's gonna have to figure it out. I don't know how he's gonna find me. I have no idea how this guy's gonna find me. But he better just find a way.
Yeah. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I have no problem finding her, so. But I had been in recent communication with her mom semi-steadily, so I was like, it's not gonna be hard. So I left because I was trying to sort it all out and went back and talked with my church leadership, my parents, everybody I could talk to basically, and everybody was just like, yeah, it sounds like the Lord, man, yeah. And I remember my pastor at the time gave me some pretty direct advice that surprised me. He said, it sounds like the Lord, you should probably just take it as fast as you can take it, within reason. And I was like, wow, I didn't expect to hear that. But I'm also not 18 years old.
We were 27.
26 at that time.
Oh yeah, we were, 26 at that time, yeah.
So, a little different scenario than the 18-year-old kid. But yeah, so I went home and spent a lot of time in prayer and trying to figure it out. And then just everything was, she's the one, this is it. So from that point on, it was go time. And next time we got to see each other, so I'm living in Washington State.
There's the part first, you called me. So I'm down in LA, and I went to Disneyland one day by myself. I was just like in Disneyland alone.
Enjoy your day in this magical place called Disneyland.
And I got down to LA, and I remember having this moment where I just started crying, and I told the Lord, my career has taken off, and I love my career. I love what I do. Pretty much all my friends are married. They're having babies. Very different life from me, and I didn't ever want to seem ungrateful for everything that God had given me or done in my life. And I just started crying, and this kind of, so it was like this thing just like bubbled up from somewhere down inside me, and it was just this. I'm really happy, I'm really thankful, but I wish I had someone to share this with. And I just felt, I don't know, like this peace, like this thing that was like, it's now or never. Like, Lord, if you're gonna do this, do it now, or just don't do it at all. Like, in my head, I can't even fathom, like, as things are growing and moving forward in my life, it just seems like it would be harder and harder and harder to bring someone into that. And so I go into Disneyland one day, and when I come back to my car, I pick up my phone, and there's a message from a number I don't know, and it was him. And immediately I knew, this is the Lord answering my prayer. I'm gonna marry this guy and it's over. And you think like little girl
Not
Kim.
over, it's beginning.
Well, yeah, like singleness is over. And
My world is over.
I immediately like panicked, which I was not expecting.
Yeah.
I panicked like, you answered that prayer really fast. Am I ready? Am I ready for that? Am I ready for my single life to be over? I was not expecting it to be this quickly. And I didn't call him back. And then he called a second time, and I literally just watched the phone ringing and let it go to voicemail. Because I was like chickening out now, like, oh my gosh, this is so much sooner than what I thought. Yeah. And then he called a third time.
So after 2 times I called and she didn't answer, I was like, okay, well, maybe this is it. I'll give it one more try, and then that'll be that. So I call her again. 3rd time, no answer.
I let it go to voicemail again.
And so then I'm like, well, all right. It must have been just, who knows what I was supposed to learn through that. But it wasn't very
And I'm like sitting on a beach sobbing, going, I don't know what to do. And finally, it was like reality kicked in or something. I went, what am I doing? Yeah. This is what I've wanted since I was a little kid. And I like run to my car and pick up my phone and called him right then. And I sat in the car. We talked like 45 minutes, and it was such a casual conversation. I got the phone going, okay, I think that was something. Because he was being so discreet about everything. He wasn't just coming right out and saying, I'm gonna marry you. Like,
Yeah.
it was just, but I think we both knew. And then we arranged to meet up and see each other in our hometown. And that was like our first date when he, told me like,
So
I
I'm
want to
living in-
pursue you. And
Yeah, I'm living in Washington State. She's living in California, so it's pretty big difference in terms of finding each other. We have the same story. And so we met up in the middle, and then
he said, you want to pursue me? And I said, prove it. and
I was like, all right, this is.
and then we had 2 more dates after that, and the 3rd date he proposed, and we got married 6 months later.
So you took that pastor's advice to heart.
Yes.
So that was the first time that you talked on the phone, right? When you were on the beach?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So there was literally we just saw each other a few times before we got engaged, and then after that it was.
Yeah.
But
We saw each other 2 times before we got engaged.
yeah, the beautiful thing was there's tons of history. Like
Yeah.
families
Yeah.
know each other. It wasn't like it was a stranger. It was almost like 2 friends that just got together.
Yeah.
When you both had God answer pretty specific
Oh,
prayers
yes.
in a way, like you kind of knew. I mean, that
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
It was really clear the Lord was doing stuff just left and right,
Yeah.
confirming, and it was great.
I remember when I was single, the married friends always wanted to tell you, like, this is how it is. And it would make me so angry because they would talk like it was a formula. It was right when I finally stopped looking that he showed up. And I'm like, there is no formula. There's not a formula to finding someone. And I just got angry, and I was like, it is just God's timing, and that's it. And you cannot control his timing. And
Yeah.
I can't even understand his timing.
Exactly.
And then the other thing that would always irritate me is when married people would say, well, I just knew. Well, what does that mean? Like, to a single person does not know what that means.
Yeah.
You say, I just knew, and a single person is like, you're talking a foreign language to
Yeah.
me.
How are you gonna know?
Yeah. and it wasn't until it happened that I went, oh, this is what they're talking about.
Yeah.
That just knowing. It's like the peace, there's no doubt or question. And it's hard to verbalize. It's a hard thing to explain. And I was like, I think you just don't know what that means until you actually experience it.
I think that's the same with kids and different areas of life. Like, you know, before I had a kid, I had no idea what's sleep deprivation.
Right?
You don't
You
know.
were blissfully unaware.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, like when I studied for the exam, till 3 a.m. No, way different. Like,
Keeps going.
yeah.
Yep.
So, no,
I miss those days.
I proposed on a rainy evening. What was it, Friday night or something? So again, brought Kim's mom into the scenario, but she went to a little church in Clown Falls. Everything's small there, so it's not hard to figure that one out. So I brought some friends down there, and Kim didn't know that they were there, and so we took over the church sanctuary. Basically, pushed out. They had a grand piano in there. Pushed the grand piano out into the middle of the room, and like put a bunch of roses out and stuff like that. Candles, and, yeah. All while Kim and I were out to dinner. So my buddies, we came up with this grand plan. You guys are gonna do that. We're gonna be out to dinner. She'll have no idea what's going on. And so the one hitch in the plan was how I was gonna get her from the restaurant to the church. I'm like, this is date night and we're going to the church.
Yeah.
At 9 o'clock at night or whatever. It's kind of a strange thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I was very irritated actually.
figure it out.
And I'm asking a million questions. At one point, you just stopped talking to me. I was like, what is going
Well,
on?
we're done at the restaurant. I'm like, okay, I just need to run by the church here really quick. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, your mom asked me to do something. Or I'm like, just trying to come up with
And I'm
something.
like, my mother is ruining my date night.
Yeah.
What is happening?
And I can just see Kim like starting to get a little bit angry or a little bit flustered. Like, no, this is our one date night. What are we doing? And so we pulled up there, and I think it became fairly apparent quite quickly what was going on. So we opened the door, walk in there, and it's all candles and roses and
And the piano.
So we sat down.
And he played The Luckiest. Played that song.
I am the luckiest.
cool.
So,
And sang it to me. He was so nervous, so he didn't play it very well, but he sang it great.
probably a little shaky on that one
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Kim's family that lived there, they were all like in the other side of the church watching, same with my buddies, and after that was done and had the ring right there and down on one knee proposed, and she said yes, and then they all came out.
Yeah.
That was it.
And our wedding was kind of crazy. I wrote a musical for our wedding.
You wrote a musical?
Yes.
Wow.
And we had a friend who made like a bunch of original music for it, and some of the music was performed live and some of it was recorded. We had like the groomsmen and the bridesmaids were all like characters and roles in this, and it was kind of like a Cinderella type story. And so I came out for the first scene and I'm like in normal clothes, and you hear the whole crowd go like what is going on? And we did it in a theater, and because it was all on stage, and there was about 800 people there. It was kind of insane. And it was really kind of a show. We didn't do anything normal. At one point, the town pastor showed up, and we exchanged rings, but we sang our vows to each other, and we did communion first before we did anything else, because it was kind of like a symbolic thing of like we're making our commitment to God first, even before we make our commitment together to each other. And yeah, we didn't do any of the like normal like all this stuff that you say at a wedding. Yeah. We didn't do any of that. And it was funny because afterwards at the reception, people actually came up and said, so you did actually get married, right? And I was like, well, yeah, because there was nothing that you could recognize as like traditional wedding jargon or anything else, you know?
And it was all mixed into the story.
Yeah, it was like, all intertwined in the story. And we hid our rings out in the audience and had like some audience interaction, everyone looking for the rings. And one guy finally finds them, stands up, like, I found them. And then we're like, you're the winner. And he comes up and he's like, hit him, he's like, they are. We're glad you found them.
Well, that's cool. You don't see that idea on Pinterest.
I know.
Yeah.
So you sang your vows to each other?
Yeah.
We did, yeah. We wrote our vows and then wrote them into a song. And one of the groomsmen was a composer, quite a musician, so he made music to it. And I wrote the lyrics and the melodies, and away we went.
Yeah.
Probably the hardest thing to sing ever.
Yeah. It was, yeah.
We have some video of the wedding. Every time we watch it, it just brings up all those emotions, and you can hear it in our voices. We're like, oh, on the verge of losing it while we're trying to sing.
Yeah.
It was really awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And only one other costume change?
Yes, just the one costume change into an actual wedding dress.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And people coming to the wedding, they didn't know it was going to be this way.
No, I mean, a few people like close to us did, like our family. And I remember my mom just being like, oh my word, Kimberly, are you sure is this gonna work? Is this gonna work? And I'm like, well, even if it doesn't, like, who cares? I'm getting married finally. Yeah. So like, I was just kind of like, it will or it won't. I honestly, for me, I was just excited about getting married, and I was like, I know this is very elaborate, crazy thing I'm doing here, but in the end, I end up married no matter what. So I was like, I'm happy with that. But it all actually went really good and really smooth, and everyone knew their parts and their roles and did their lines perfectly. It was incredible, actually, and kind of a miracle that it turned out so smooth, and everyone loved it because it was like going to a show, and they kept saying, I have never gone to a wedding where I'm laughing hysterically, and then I'm crying, and then I'm applauding, and then I'm, and because it's like going to musical theater where there's songs being sung throughout and lots of comedic action and things like that. It's just very lighthearted and very, very fun.
That's awesome. Amazing.
It was fun.
So did you guys have any expectations going into marriage?
And did you have any like mentors or do any premarital counseling during that stint?
Yeah.
We did premarital counseling with Danny Silk, who
That's great.
has been a father in my life for many years. It was great because Danny, he knew me even, through all the dating, the setbacks, like everything I was working through as a single woman. And when Skyler came along, I told him, there's two guys that you're gonna have to have a conversation with for this to move forward. And it was Banning, who's, over Jesus Culture, and Danny.
And as you just say yes when he calls. Listen, he's calling you to seek his face.
And both
The most satisfying part of relationships is when people are connected, when they feel the love that they have for one another.
after those conversations said to me, marry him, marry this guy, do it quickly, nail this down, okay?
Seal the deal.
Yes. So yeah, we did it with him, and I don't know, as far as expectations,
we set out some things early on that I think helped us grow a pretty solid foundation in our marriage. One of the things was both want to just be on each other's side, no matter what life looks like for us or who's in the lead. Obviously, Kim has spotlight on her a lot, and it's creates some unique dynamics. So like sometimes that's going to be the case, sometimes it'll be the other direction. But really, what we both want to do is just push the other one as hard as we can towards success, basically, whatever success looks like in that moment. And so if that's relationship with the Lord or career success or family success, whatever that is, we just want to make sure that we're both on that same page of I'm going to be pushing you that way and you're going to be pushing me that way. And sometimes it'll look differently, and that's okay, because 2 years down the road maybe it looks the opposite way, and we're just going to go for it. So I think that idea set us up for a lot of successes, and avoided a lot of potential struggles, just because we were always, I want you to be the best Kim you can be, and she was like, I want you to be the best Skyler you can be, and I'm gonna do whatever I can to help that come to pass.
Yeah. And we spent our first year of marriage in San Francisco, living there. I was going to a theater school, actually. We found out, originally I had planned on going to this theater school before he had come into my life, and I just said, the timing is interesting because I applied to this school, I got accepted, I've been planning to do this. He's like, I'll move anywhere for you, and which was great. But we get there and we're like, I think this was more about our marriage than it was even the school. I think the Lord was already setting that up, because Redding, where I was living, is a very small town, and I couldn't really go anywhere without knowing people, or people knowing me. And it was just, that's a lot of pressure on a marriage to have everyone just watching you and just staring at every move and decision you make. And so it actually was really good for us to be in San Francisco, away from everyone. People talk about the honeymoon cave, people get married and disappear for a while, and we disappeared for a solid year. It was a very long honeymoon cave, and it was perfect, because that is what we really needed, and it helped us really solidify who we are as a team, because people did know me, but now we were kind of coming back as I'm Kim Smith now. It's different. It's a different dynamic. It's a different person, and it's a team dynamic. And so that was good, because we were able to kind of establish that out of the spotlight, and we needed that. It was really good.
Fortunately, the way that everything worked, and with being able to travel and minister and do that, we spent pretty much the entirety of our first year together.
Yeah, all the time.
And not separating for work during the day or anything. Every day was all day, which was really great. It was a really special time.
I know, to be able to grow closer to each other after being away from all those years, and since you do have to be on stage and traveling, I think being able to have that unity there, and that have your back, and we're a team here. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. We needed that.
Yeah.
We did. Yeah, those foundations are still there. I think about some of the things that we set up then, Obviously the Lord was moving and talking to us, because those things are still foundation pillars for us.
Yeah, because since then, life has gotten busier. It's always busy, I guess. But.
Totally.
Yes.
Kids and
Church plant,
moving,
Multiple
all of
albums.
that. A lot of stuff, a lot of life, but we do it together, and we don't. Skylar and I are both kind of the personalities where we feel like we don't have to defend or explain our decisions, or we know that it's unconventional at times. People see me a lot, but they don't always see him or the strength that he brings or what he does, but we don't necessarily feel this thing of having to prove ourselves to anybody, and so we just continue to push each other and to cheer each other on, and to encourage what's in each other's hearts, whatever that looks like, and remaining flexible. We kind of have to do that with everything happening in our life, things change so much, and each year is kind of different, you know.
I think early on we thought, all right, we're gonna figure out how our life, how our marriage works, you know, our lifestyle, and we're gonna figure that out, and we're gonna jump into it, and it's gonna be great. Now we're a little older and wiser, and it's obvious to us, at least in our lifestyle, that we may not ever figure out that one thing, because as soon as we get there, it changes, and then we have to rearrange.
Yeah.
And it's been always adjusting and always just trying to reassess. Okay, this was last year, that worked, that didn't work. Next year's going to be different. Let's use the stuff that worked and throw away some of the other stuff and try new things.
Yeah.
What does that look like practically? Like, is it part of your date nights, or is it, you know, once a month check-in, or is it you guys are constantly working this out?
Lots of communication, and we
Yeah.
are constantly working it out. And I'm a little bit more of the feeler, especially, you know, since having kids, and I feel really in tune with the kids and kind of gauging like how they're feeling and what's going on. And Skyler's, he's more realistic, you know, because I'll think I can conquer the world, and he's like, your arm is hanging off. Like, no, you need a break. Like, he's the one who like kind of keeps us all grounded and helps with realistic expectations and ideas and plans, because I do have a tendency to like be living out in the future and just constantly like dreaming and thinking out there, and he's good at helping rein me back in and go, okay, let's be realistic about this. We can handle this one thing. We can't handle all these things, so pick your favorite, or, you know, whatever it is. Especially with kids, ever since kids came along, you know, so our boys, we toured with them the first 2 years, the first 1 year of each of their lives, and first 2 years of our older son's life. And it was great. It was really hard, you know, as a musician on the road and touring and ministry with kids. And we got to the end, and, you know, we kind of reevaluate towards the end of every year, because when you hit the fall, they're wanting to start planning the next year and get it all planned out. So a whole year of our life is planned way ahead for us. So we started looking at our boys and going, I think they're done. I think they need a break from the road. And these 2 years with babies on the road has been hard. It's been good. They did great, but we could just feel it. Like they need some stability, and it's not real normal, I think, for toddlers to not have stability, you know, like they really need that. And so it was a tough decision, but it was that we're in this together. So we decided to take the year off, and there were some things that contracts, things I couldn't get out of, but we were able to just shorten everything to like the very smallest amount of time gone, and the very most few things on the schedule. And we stayed home, and we left the boys at home. So I just would go out like 2 nights max and come home, and he stayed home with the boys while I did that. And that was a big change for us. It was crazy for me to be gone and not have him or the boys with me. And that was a huge adjustment. I remember my first trip, I cried the whole trip, because I had never been away from my kids like that. I'd never been away from him like that. And it was just bizarre, but it became the new normal for that year. And then we got to the end of the year and went, okay, you know what, they're doing really good. They seem stable. They're older. One of them's potty trained. And then we said, I think we're ready to get back out again. And we kind of talked like, okay, but what if we're not? What if we get out there and they fall apart and they hate it, or and we both just decided, well, then we change it. We just say, we pull out. We say, sorry. Yeah. We thought it would work, but it's not. And so just remaining like constantly flexible. And I mean, we talk about our schedule and our life, and even like what's on for the week, like nightly. Kids go to bed and we start talking life, you know?
So do you guys put the kids to bed early at all and have a couple hours to yourself at night?
I wish.
In a dream world.
I wish. Our kids are not great sleepers, and I don't know if it's just because of life on the road, you know, different time zones, things like that. They just are not good sleepers. And so we keep them up kind of late, because we're just hoping that they will sleep in to some degree. They still will kind of wake up early. So
are there any books or any other courses or anything that you've taken that you thought was really good for helping couples who are married?
I mean, well, we did Danny's course. We did that, but we
read a lot of books early on.
Yeah, we read a ton of books.
We took a little more of that. We just gather as much info as we can and hold on to
what connects with us.
Yeah. So,
well, you guys have been blessed to have some great people speaking into your life,
Yeah.
and so maybe anything that like sticks out, from that? One of those mentors, or
Banny.
and even traveling. I mean, traveling opens us up to a lot of different experiences and wisdom from people. So anything from the road that you've heard, or
one thing is, in terms of pressures and expectations that we all put on our marriage and other people put on our marriage, no matter who we are, we've got a consistent message from people that we respect and honor and trust. That's like, that's not taking you forward in any way. You need to focus on being healthy and let the Lord take you where you want to go. And yes, invest in making your marriage strong, and invest in each other, and invest in communication. But like having these really high expectations and then not meeting them all the time is like, becomes a negative in your life. But if you have, not that I don't have high expectations for our marriage, but like, way out there all the time, I think we bring it in a lot closer all the time, and we're like, okay, we're disconnected right now, let's get connected, and just more of a very personal approach, and trying to keep it like, this is us right now, let's succeed at this. And our struggle right now is the boys haven't slept in 3 days. How do we sort this out? Our struggle right now is next month is going to be crazy. Let's figure out how we're going to approach this and win at it. And that's been really instrumental in us doing well, I think, and just allowing the Lord to do what He does and taking our responsibility, or my responsibility is, treat Kim well and treat the family well, and take care of myself in terms of if I got something going on, I need to get that sorted, not just let it hang out there and have it affect them all the time. And so being present in our relationship is a big thing, and something we always work on. Like, let's get this connection, let's keep our connection at all costs. And if there's something that's pulling us apart, whether it's just a silly argument or it's, life circumstances for these months, let's figure this out so we can approach life from a place of connectedness, not a place of disconnection, which is huge for us.
And we both have a really high value for feedback. And so we've made it a point in our lives and marriage to keep our lives open to specific people, around us, mentors and mothers and fathers, who they can speak into our life and give us feedback on just being the best version of ourselves. And that always influences the marriage, And I mean, there's been so many times that Banning has met with us one-on-one and spoken into our lives or given us feedback or challenged us in a certain way. And Skyler might come home, or I might come home and go, I met with Banning today and he was really challenging me in this. And I'm sure Skyler's had the experience where I tell him, Banning challenged me this, and he's probably going, thank God. Like finally someone said it, or like, I've been trying to tell you that for years, and finally so now you heard it, And I've had the same thing with him. Like, he's come home and he's like, man, Banning said something, it really like pushed me to kind of go, I am totally doing this. And I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Like, you have those moments, but I think that's important too. Like, not every counseling or whatever is always done together, but I think just having a high value for, I want to grow and change, and allowing feedback to come in to you just as a person, it always benefits your spouse, because you're on an endeavor to grow, and you then end up, growing together. So
has that been easy for you guys? Have you both always been open to feedback, or has that been a process?
Well, I feel like it's been a challenge for this guy.
Oh, it's been easy. Nothing to it. We got that sorted a long time ago.
For me, when I kind of like really surrendered my life to God at 18, and I graduated high school. I moved to Redding, and I was going to a Christian university there, and then later I ended up at Bethel and connected with Banning immediately. And that was just in their environment there, like, having value for feedback and growing, all that kind of stuff. I had never been exposed to that up to that point, and part of it was probably just life, also age. I don't think teenagers are thinking about that so much, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I kind of feel like I was kind of brought up in that environment and taught to have a value for that. And I accepted it because I've always been extremely ambitious and career-minded. And for me, I relate that to, I gotta grow. And I gotta be the best version of myself because I want to grow, I want to go forward. And Skyler comes from a family that's like, they're super, it's a super healthy family. It's a great environment and they're really strong people and very independent, which is, has its strengths and weaknesses.
Which is my struggle is I'm like, this is my problem, I'm gonna sort it out. And my first thing isn't like, oh, I need to ask somebody for help or, oh, I need to hear what somebody else's perspective is. My thing is like, I'm gonna get this sorted out.
Yeah, contemplate it inwardly and process.
Yes.
I mean, obviously that's good to some extent, but my world, it's bad sometimes because it's so far that I won't, won't reach up a hand like, help me, I'm drowning here.
Yeah.
Somebody, actually I think it's Banning, he's like, dude, it's like you're out in the ocean, you're in a little tiny rowboat, your boat's sinking, you got a box full of flares and a flare gun, and there's a ship there waiting to help you, and you're not shooting off your flares. What are you doing? Yeah, that makes sense. So that's definitely been a bit of a challenge.
You received feedback really well. It just took you a while to like realize that you wanted it or needed it, or just bringing people in to what's going on.
It's difficult, and it's like even talking about it right now. I'm like, oh yeah, it's clear as day. Yes, that makes sense. People can help. Let's help each other. But for whatever reason, my mentality in my head is, I'm gonna do this on my own.
I think that's a male trait in a way. I'll say I have the same issue. You can confirm, right?
Yeah. So have you been working on like creating community? 'Cause it's hard when you are on the road and traveling, but you have other couples that can get in your life and in your face and help refine you and be there.
We kind of have like two worlds. So like we've got, there's like couples and people in other cities and other places where we feel really connected to them and we stay in contact with them and we make it a point to see them, a minimum of once a year, but usually it ends up being more, and we feel really connected to those people, but it's obviously not the same as like the community, like where you live. And so that's been better for us since we moved here to plant a church. So we, came to plant the church, and that's it. Planting a church is hard, but the best part about it, I think, has been just being in the foundational stages of getting to know people, and also kind of that, it's like, for me, it's just nice, like just getting to know people, like just as Kim, the mom standing in the back with her screaming children, and not like necessarily like worship leader Kim, you know what I mean? So that's been good. It's a challenge because we are country kids and we like living in the boondocks, so we live out in the country on a little farm, and we're like out away from everyone, so we have to be super intentional about like getting together with friends or whatever, because it's kind of hard when you live out in the middle of nowhere. But
we look at it like there's essentially like 3 tiers of that we need to have healthy operating in our lives, and one would be people that we can impart to, pour into, help out. So almost like we would be the mentors in that situation, and then peer level friends, which would be just people in our same zone of life, like we're all working through some of the same things and figuring out life on the same level. And then the other side of the mentor thing, people speaking into our lives that can help out. And when we get that mix working well together, it's like, oh yeah, this is working, we feel super connected. But honestly, you lose one of those in our lives and it's like something doesn't feel quite right, it's like we're missing something. So it's always our challenge, and like Kim said, you have kids and you live away from everything, and you have church, and
you're busy on the road for weeks at a time. I'll hang out with you in 3 weeks.
Put it on my calendar.
I feel kind of bad. Some of my girlfriends, I'm like, I'm preparing them, going, okay, well, I'm going to be gone on a tour for 3 weeks, and they know with me it feels so weird, but we have to like really plan ahead and be intentional about hanging out. And I always feel so like kind of embarrassed, like I can't really just be like, yeah, play date today, let's do it, because usually our life, like I'm just not able to do that. And so but I will be looking ahead and like scheduling and planning stuff out, because we have to be intentional. Otherwise, we just don't have it at all. So we can't function that way.
Yeah, and those things, because they're important to us, you make time. You have to make time for them because they're important to us, and it means that we don't have tons of friends all the time, and tons of people we're mentoring all the time, and tons of people speaking into our lives. But there's definitely the select few that we're always like, yep, these are our connection points here, here, and here. To make sure if we're home for now, or we're like have some time now, let's start fostering those connections again.
Well, the intentionality behind it, because I love that blend, because I feel like when you're mentoring someone, you're getting to you look back on your own life, you're going, this is how God was faithful, and it's in a way, it's sharing your testimony, mentoring.
Yeah.
And it's super inspirational.
Yeah, it is.
Like, you start in, you're
even like, oh, cool, well, yeah, God has gotten me to this point where I get to speak into someone's life, and so I think that's the one, because I think it's easy for us in any area of life to go, yeah, I want someone to speak into me. We go to church, and we go to the conferences, and we crave that, but to be able to go, no, God's given us our story to share. And
it's funny, and even it's the one that brings the most life sometimes, it seems,
Yeah.
And you, just because, like you said, you get to reminisce on what the Lord has done in your life, and then share that, and then it helps someone, and you're like, wow, I'm stoked just because of what the Lord has done. So it's really important.
So tell us about 2017. You've got a lot going on.
Yeah.
Speaking of schedules and long-term schedules, short-term schedules.
Totally. We got my what is this, number 3 of the solo records, not counting Home and the Christmas album. But this my 3rd solo record is coming out in April. Just finished recording the Jesus Culture album, the next one of those, and that will come out in, I want to say like August, I think, July, August, somewhere around there. And baby number 3 will be joining our crew in
Right in the middle.
June. Yeah, right in the middle. Right in the middle of 2 tours. Did you all forget? This is exactly what I did with the boys. Both my boys, when we first went out, it was at 2 months old, traveling with them. And I was like, actually, that is a lot easier traveling with them than older. Like the newborn stage, I'm like, that's like a breeze. Yeah, they sleep and they nurse. Like that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's so much easier than when they start getting, active, crawling and wanting to walk. And sorry, you can't just crawl around the dirty airplane floor. Like this. All of that.
Tour life is not baby proofed.
No.
Thank you so much, Kim and Skyler, for sharing your story. It was so encouraging. Day in and day out, I have Kim's music just playing in my house. It just encourages me in my Christian walk to know that God is right there with me throughout all my struggles, always waiting for me to speak to him.
We are extremely blessed to be able to go to church with Kim and her husband. And again, Kim's brand new album is out now. We can't recommend it highly enough. You can learn more about it on our website, engagingstory.com. And lastly, if you love the episode, if you love the podcast and what we're trying to do here to strengthen marriages, head over to iTunes and leave a review in the podcast store. If you've never left a review on a podcast, well, let us be your first one. We've got details on how to do that. If you go to engagingstory.com, the step-by-step instructions on how to leave a podcast review. Thanks so much.
No, again, Matt left out. The most important thing about relationships is that Skyler was living in Washington and she was living in California. And there's just something magical about
formula for a good marriage.
That people that, date from Washington and California, they just end up with the best, healthiest, happiest, sexy marriages. So I encourage you, wherever you are, to move there. If you're not living in California and the other person moved to Washington, and you'll meet your soulmate. Matt, do you want to explain that at all?
I think people realize that was our story also. We've got a lot more episodes on their way. If you want to get updates, you can head to our website. We've got a blog, and we like to give you a little sneak peek in the editing process, engagingstory.com, and follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/engagingstory.